Welcome back to the Doc's Diagnosis, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. I'm Travis Justice. He's Dr. Rob Zadiska. Now, don't get upset, because I know we usually talk about Nebraska plays on this, but we're actually going to do an Iowa play.
And this is a great play.
Yeah, well, he was happy about it. It's an interesting play because it was talked about nationally, because this is something you see a lot, but it's never called that often. And I will concede, under the letter of the rule, it's a 100% correct call. I understand it.
I get it. And I'm going to disagree with you just because I think this gets called more often than you think. It gets called and maybe in a situation where the game's not necessarily on the line and the touchdown in question isn't a game changer.
From what we've been able to see, though, Rob, the last time this was called was 2015 in a Wisconsin game. So the actual invalid signal rule. And we're talking about the Iowa-Minnesota game. So let's go to the video. This is Cooper DeJean. Now, Cooper DeJean...
Hell of a player, by the way.
One of the best college football players, period, right? He's a preseason defensive player of the year. This is him fielding a punt. Now, watch. He's pointing, and waving.
He's waving.
He's waving. Do you think that's a fair catch? Do you think...
I think it's an invalid signal, and my opinion is that when you're looking at this and that arm's moving like that, I understand he's waving guys away. When you look at the play, downfield, literally 15 yards downfield where that ball first bounces, there's other Minnesota and Iowa players that he's waving off. I get that.
But hold on.
But
he's waving here. There's nobody behind him. Nobody.
He doesn't have to be waving.
Nobody
it doesn't
can
have
see
to
it.
be. Yeah, dude, all of these guys down here that we can't see on the screen that he's yelling at can see him waving that arm. It doesn't matter that there's nobody behind him. You can, okay, it's not like people are blind to that waving. And we get to like the full screen here, or is this is after we had the full screen up. But
so we can go back to the full screen.
Let's watch the full screen here. So here's the punt. He's waving. That's enough of a hand motion that guys can see it. And so I understand he's waving guys off. I get that. The problem is whether you're waving guys off or truly signaling a fair catch. Anytime you have a guy moving his arm like this right here, any arm motion, they're going to call that an invalid signal. I've seen, now here's the thing. I know you said you've only found it going back in like 2015.
Yeah.
I see this every so often, and what usually happens, and the reason it doesn't get out there into the media as, well, this is where we saw this called, is because usually what happens, guys do the whole like, yeah, I'm going to call a fair, you know what, I'm going to catch it and run. And they take one step, ref blows their whistle, no, you moved that arm, play's dead, and nobody thinks twice about it because it's not a game on the line where he took it for the potential game-winning touchdown. It happens, I think, fairly often where I see it and guys do sort of that half-assed wave, decide to catch it and run, take one step, ref blows the whistle, that's it, and nobody thinks twice about it.
Then why didn't they blow the whistle here? Because
they should have.
They should.
They should, and I'll give you that. If they, the problem here, the controversy here is the fact that they didn't call it at the time. And kind of what everybody thinks happens is that, so the ref said, hey, we're going to review it.
And the original review was to see
did he step out of bounds.
That was the original review.
And I understand that. And if that's what they're reviewing and he didn't step out of bounds, here's my question. Can you go back and call that in hindsight? And I thought it's kind of like the pass interference thing. Can you review a play for one thing and then come back and say, oh,
you can't.
There was pass interference on that we didn't call. We're calling pass interference now.
That's not reviewable. Something like this is actually reviewable. So I guess I'm going to put it this way.
So it's a reviewable play.
It's a reviewable play, but they didn't go to the monitor originally to review it. But you can.
The behind the scenes concern, however, amongst the Iowa faithful is that they think P.J. Fleck was sitting there going like, hey, while you're reviewing the out-of-bounds step, the potential out-of-bounds step, take a look at his arm.
And listen, There are Nebraska fans celebrating this, and I get it. I understand it.
Well,
but I always.
I'm a Nebraska fan. I'm not celebrating it. I'm just saying, technically, everything was within the rules. It cost Iowa the game.
So, and I always say, put yourself in your seat. If that happened in Nebraska, what would
pissed
people
as hell?
Yes, you would be.
I get it. If you're the fan of that team, you're going to be pissed as hell. Trent Condon.
Yep.
So KXNO guy.
Yeah, I work with Trent.
So he had a great take on this. Did this cost Iowa the game? Yes, it did. But he also said the other thing to keep in mind is the fact that Iowa had, 11 carries for 0.4 yards per carry is really what cost Iowa the game and is way more egregious than this. It's one of those things when your offense is that bad.
It's bad.
All of these little things get highlighted, and as Nebraska fans, believe me, we understand that because when we lose a goddamn game and we get a disconcerting signals called against us, those are the little margins that make you lose games when your offense is this bad or your defense is this bad or your special teams are this bad. When you're Nebraska over the last several years, that margin is so thin. Every little thing matters, and so when you get and that's where Iowa's at right now. Every little thing matters. So you have, I don't know if calling it a mistake or a mistake by the rest that they didn't blow it dead at the time, highlights it all of a sudden, and now you realize, man, there's a pretty thin margin Iowa's winning these games
100% agree. I think that it could have a weird precedence here. That is, if you get a punt return of 20, 30, or even any touchdown,
big return,
you're going to have a coach now saying, nope, he waved his arm. And because technically, I see where you have a problem with this. The pointing at the football technically is an invalid signal. And I don't know, is that saying...
I'd be hard-pressed to say refs are going to call it back on that. In a situation like this where he's waving guys off and there's this very gross moment, there's like 3 big arm movements like that. That's an obvious one. The ones that are going to be questionable is where a guy's just running up to the ball, moves his hands up to catch it. Is that going to be construed as an invalid signal now?
Here's what I like about the sport of football.
Nuance.
Nuance, and you learn something new every day. I mean, this is one of those things you're like, wow, totally forgot or didn't even know about it. So you do learn something new.
Hey, disconcerting signals. It's real. It does not happen just to Nebraska, but when it does, all of a sudden you realize what these little nuances are and how it can affect a game.
So that was a long doctor's diagnosis, but if you want to hear us talk more about this play, and of course the Nebraska Northwestern game, make sure to check out this week's Doc Talk podcast presented by Betfred Sports. For Dr. Rob Zadiska, I'm Travis Justice. Thanks for watching the Doc's Diagnosis presented by Centris Federal Credit Union.
Ready to embark on a new financial journey? Centris Federal Credit Union is here to help. Centris is your trusted financial partner, focused on what truly matters, giving back to our communities and ensuring their members' experience is top-notch. With 15 convenient locations, Centris' mobile and online banking, instant issue debit cards, and local expertise, your new financial path is closer than you think. Visit centrisfcu.org, stop by a Centris branch, or give them a call at 402-334-7000 to learn more about how they can help you achieve financial success. Centris Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA and equal housing lender. Your journey to financial freedom starts here. Centris Federal Credit Union, where you and your community come first.